All right, so the first question would be, would you begin by sharing a little bit about your family of origin and give us a brief history of your life up to this point? So there you go.
Okay. I was born in my grandparents' house on their farm between Eagleville and Bethany, Missouri. When I was about 3 weeks old or so, we moved back to our family farm, which was about 8 miles southwest of Lamoni. We were about maybe 3 miles west of the Evergreen congregation.
Could I ask you what your maiden name was?
Blake, B-L-A-K-E.
Blake.
Our nearest neighbor was roughly a mile away, so we were kind of isolated. We were on 80 acres of farmland, and it was a lot of hill even. My dad was from a family of 5 kids. My mom was from a family of 7 kids. They both grew up during the Depression. They both went through 8th grade, and during that time, a lot of people went through 8th grade and then quit to help with the family's income. My dad was 10 years older than Mom. He was an Army veteran from World War II. He spent 2 years in Germany towards the end of the war. He was gone quite a bit. He hired out to other farms around, and I also did part-time work like painting houses and odd jobs in town. We only had one vehicle. My mom did not drive. She tried to learn a couple times, on the not automatic, but the manual transmission. And my dad was a teacher, and that didn't work.
It's too full, way too full.
I spent a lot of time outside myself because we didn't have much money. We didn't have very many toys among I was the middle child of 3. We didn't have very many toys between us because we got maybe like one big toy at Christmas time, and that was basically it. I spent a lot of my time outside growing up. We had a tree house. We had a swing. We spent a lot of time walking around 80 acres. So we had a pond. We went fishing, but our fishing pole was a branch off the tree with a piece of baling twine and a safety pin for a hook. And we dug our own worms. We had a creek at the property line. Spent a lot of time down there looking for tadpoles and rocks and stuff like that. Let's see, we rode the bus to school. Since we didn't participate in many after school activities because nobody there to pick us up, so we had to go to school and come back on the bus. In 7th grade, my good friend was Joy Cool, who was the daughter of Fred Cool, who built the organ here in town in the sanctuary. Let's see. In 10th grade, I'll go back. From 7th grade through 12th grade, I played clarinet in marching band, orchestra, and I was in the choir. And in 10th grade, our choir director was Lou Clothier. Also in 10th grade, Joy convinced me that we should go out for basketball. And that did not work out for me. I'm not a Caitlin Clark. But I did pretty good at free throwing, so every once in a while the coach would have me do free throws. One of our assistant basketball coaches was Rich Harrop. He was also my 10th grade biology teacher. And if any of you remembered Dr. Roy Mortimer, he was our 10th grade geography teacher. Also, at the end of 10th grade, let's see, my Joy's family decided to move to Burlington, so there went my best friend. And we finally decided to move to town because Dad was spending more time off the farm than on the farm. So we moved to town, to a little house on Chestnut Street.
So did you have brothers or sisters?
Yes, I had a sister who's 4 years older, and I had a brother who's 3 years younger. But unfortunately, he passed away in 1991 from colon cancer. He was only 38. So, also, the fall of 66, my sister got married, so she wasn't around anymore. In my junior year of high school, I tried out for the leading role in our class play. I did not get it, but I got a minor role. But I'm glad I didn't get the major role because my cousin Bill got the male role, and I would have had to kiss him. That would. Let's see. At the end of my senior year, everybody's trying to make up their minds about whether to go to college or, get a job. I had a lot of trouble during high school with I got pretty good grades, B's and C's, but I had to really study to do it. So I decided I didn't really want to go to 4 more years of college. So I decided to go to Southwest Community College. They had a 1-year program with the vocational technical program for secretarial. So I went there. Our girls' dorm, was the old hospital of Creston. It used to be the old hospital. So my room there was the old nursery. So had a big window. The second semester there, I was on the student council, and I worked 2 hours a day after school at an insurance agency. They had a deal going with the secretarial class that they usually used, secretarial students. Towards the end of the year, one of my teachers suggested there was a job open at the hospital in the medical records area that would mostly be typing up reports, surgical reports, all kinds of medical reports about the patients. So I went and applied. It was to be full-time at first because one of the girls was leaving to have a baby, and I'd replace her, but full-time at first so I could they were backed up with stuff that had not been taken care of. So I'd be full-time at first and then move into part-time. But I ended up being full-time all the time. At the end of that, I was there for about a year, and I decided, well, I'm only be going to do typing reports all the time. I want to have something different, something instead of that all the time. So I applied for a job out at Graceland. I came down on a Saturday and interviewed, and then I was hired as secretary receptionist in the president's office out there. And I worked there for 8 years under 4 different presidents. Bill Higdon for 4 years, and then he was ordained as an apostle. Velma Rouge was interim president for a year, and then they hired Gerald Knudsen from, I think it was Oklahoma. He was only there for a little over a year. And then Frank Huff was president after that. Let's see. I met Dale at Graceland in '72. It was March of his senior year. So he graduated in May and went back to Kansas City to try to find a job down there. And in the meantime, well, we wrote back and forth, and then eventually we ended up, like every other weekend, we trade off. He would come here, I'd go there. When we started dating, we started going to the students' worship service on Sundays. I think it was Sundays. And then in about, let's see, '74,
I'm going to give,
there was a job opening here at Graceland as in the computer department. So he moved up here, and
you see that?
we started going to this congregation here on Sundays.
You notice that?
We got married in '76.
You gotta set that.
That was, we didn't have much money, so I made my dress, I made Dale's suit, I made bow ties for all the guys in the wedding. My sister made the bridesmaid's dress, and she made the cake, so that was coordinated between us two, three, four people. Our first child was born in '78, so I really debated about whether to quit work or stay home as a mom, you know. So I decided finally to stay home as a mom. Our second child was born 14 months later. Surprise. Let's see. Our third child was born 12 years later. Another surprise. That was about 4 months before my brother passed away, so that was kind of up and down. After our second child was born, I decided I was really working on, well, to keep the family unity, I think I should join the church. So I kept thinking about it, and one of my favorite hymns at the time was "The Spirit of God, like a fire, is burning." Every once in a while I get this voice that said, "The Spirit of God is like a fire is calling." And I would say, wait a minute, that word is supposed to be burning. And it would come back to me, "The Spirit of God, like a fire, is calling." Like, if you don't do it now, it's going to be like a fire and burn out, and you won't do it. So, I think it was in May of '80, I was baptized by Rick Seeger. Where is that? Yeah.
It was over there.
Let's see. In '82, I believe it was, Dale's position at Graceland was terminated. So we had to decide, what do we do now? So there was an accountant, I don't know if you knew Ron Gleason. He was a member here. He was an accountant, so he and Dale kind of went into business to start accounting service plus computer services and kind of repair. And also we would do documents, if anybody needed something typed up, which eventually I got to do.
I'd like to try it with the earbuds or whatever it was. I can't do a thing.
Eventually, Ron and Dale decided, to part ways. They weren't quite doing what they thought they would do. So we moved our business over on Main Street, which is to the building which is now the tattoo parlor. I don't know. And before that, it had been a bar and other things. So we started over there. And In '84, the banker had gotten a letter from the Radio Shack saying that they noticed quite a bit of computer sales, Tandy computer sales in our area. Did you know anybody who would like to be a franchise person? So we decided, well, why not? So in '85, we opened our franchise, Radio Shack franchise, which lasted for about 19 years. And during that time, our store got a couple of what they call Store of Excellence awards from Radio Shack. Seemed like every other year we were qualified for trips, mostly cruises to like the Bahamas, Mexico, St. Thomas, mostly down in the Caribbean. We went to Rome one year and Spain, which was on the Mediterranean. We were in the Mediterranean area. Let's see, 2011. Yeah, 2011. I was called to the order of deacon, priesthood. I was not expecting that. That was a surprise. And also that year, the bank decided, well, we're behind in payments, kind of, so we're going to close your store. So that was a big, what do we do now? So we decided, well, we'll do early retirement. So we waited till until we were 62 to take early retirement, Social Security, and Dale kept on working, helping people with their computers and other jobs. In 2014, I was asked to be the CFO here. Also, before that, I joined the choir here, and then when Marlene Blau passed away, Dawn asked me to be kind of like the secretary, in charge of the music and the robes, and I did that. In 2014, I was asked to be CFO of the congregation, and then in 2015, the World Church did their downsized many of the people that were working with them and in the mission centers. So Jessica Montague, who had been the assistant CFO for the mission center, was one of those who got downsized. And I got a call one day from Linda Fisher saying, well, Vince Lewis would like to talk to you. I thought, uh-oh, what have I done? So they were looking for a part-time person to kind of help out with basically Shelby. Vince did not know much about it, and I did a little training with Jessica to do. I knew most of it except for the accounts payable, and that's what mostly I was doing then. And then when Linda Fisher decided to retire, I stayed on with 2 days a week doing basically the same thing. So that's about it.
Wow. It always amazes me how much of a story you have to share, like everyone does, but I mean, it's a really interesting story of your life. So you talked a bit about, how you joined the church, your faith journey that way, and the turning point was probably the fact you had children, and Dale was associated with the church, and so all of that.
Yeah. We were raised Methodist,
Okay.
and at the time I was thinking about it, I went and talked to my folks. And,
Okay.
I told them,
Mhm.
I think I'd like to join our LDS church, just basically to unify the family, and because, I was starting to have beliefs towards them, and my dad was saying, well, you'll still be the same person.
Good.
So,
So you had support.
yeah, I had support from them.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
And your sister still lives?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, she's, in fact, she's moving to Baltimore, Maryland. I think she's getting married again, I'm not sure, but she met a guy that her first husband and her knew when they were kids, the students at Iowa State. So,
Yeah. So you're going to miss her then?
oh yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a
Oh,
long
yeah.
ways to go. So how have your views of God changed throughout your life?
Basically, I would say from a fire and brimstone guy, like, you do this, you're going to hell, to, ever encompassing, loving, caring person, basically.
Do you have any idea of why that changed for you?
Can't hear you, Lori.
Yeah.
Get the mic on.
Okay. So you heard what Linda said. So do you have any idea why that changed for you from fire and brimstone to seeing God as a loving God?
I would say a lot from this congregation, people seem to be caring, and I know when I joined, there was a couple of people that said, well, I thought you were already a member. So, yeah, and just other incidences with God, with Spirit Himself.
So it sounds like it was kind of a gradual line upon line, precept upon precept development of your view of God, kind of changed over time. Have you had any spiritual experiences that have strengthened your faith? Now, you did talk about, the Spirit of God, like a fire, is calling. Has anything else happened that maybe solidified your faith, or maybe you saw something a little differently because of it?
Okay, this is, there's a couple. Our folks moved again to the house just north of H&R Block. It was the doctor's clinic for a long time. They had a living room window on the south side, and every time you drove by, you could see my dad in his favorite chair. He's usually sitting there watching Discovery Channel. In the fall, before he passed away, he'd come over to visit, and he would mention, well, I'm not going to make it past the spring. I'm not going to see the spring next year. So he would tell us where all his papers were, important papers, this and this. One day I was driving over to see him, and I saw you could see him sitting in his favorite chair. He knew he was watching TV. And this voice came to me and said, one day you're going to find him asleep, but he's not going to be asleep. He's going to be there. So I think it was in February of that year. I got a call from the doctor's office saying, well, you can come to your dad's house now. I said, what? So I went over there, and there he was, sitting in his chair, the TV, well, back up. He had supposed to have been out to Crown Colony to go to lunch. They had that special, they supplied lunch for the Crown Colony people and people around who would like to come out. He was supposed to go out there to have lunch, and then one of his friends, they always played pool together. So he wasn't there that day. So the friend came to the house, knocked on the door, no answer, and then he kind of went inside. And they found Dad in his chair, asleep, but not asleep, and the TV was on, Discovery Channel. So, I guess the friend had gone over to the doctor's office and told them about it, and they called me. When I got there, Dr. Magley was there. So she said, well, we think he just went to sleep, took a nap, and around 9:30 that morning. He was there sitting in his chair with his coat on and his hat, like he was getting ready to go. So that happened. Another instance, I would say we were at choir up front here in the sanctuary,
Because I can't hear it.
and all of a sudden I felt this strong burning feeling, like maybe somebody was praying for me or something, and I felt
I
the
can't hear it.
spirit. It was just like a person getting up from about midway over on the west side of the sanctuary. Just get up and come forward and come straight at me. And this burning feeling went all through me. And after the service, Velma Rooch was there, and she said, "Did you feel me praying for you?" So, yeah, I sure did. Let's see. That's two experiences.
So, thank you for those, because those are beautiful. The power of prayer always amazes me. I don't know how prayer works, but it seems to have its power, doesn't it? So, and maybe on the other side of the coin, what have some of the challenges been in your life, and how have you managed to get through them?
It's just all garbled and blurred.
I would say the biggest one, well, when you lose, your family, that's always big. So you just keep on going, and over time, you don't really get over it, but you find peace. The biggest one was when we lost the store downtown. That was a shock, and just try to find something to replace it, I guess, and always feel like God's there. He may not have the answer, but He's still there to support you, keep you going.
So did you do more praying during that time, or meditating, or, how were you assured that God was there? What made you so sure that God was there?
I guess we did some praying, just had the feeling, He's there, He'll help. So.
Sound like a strong faith then, yeah. The sense of God's presence and assurance that He's there. Yeah, and I was going to ask you too, you talked about your dad's death. Did your mom die before your dad?
Let's see, she started working at Graceland when we moved to town. She was there for 19 years. She retired in '84. Then in '85, she had a blockage in her intestines. She got surgery for that, but in the meantime there was an abscess that did not heal, would not heal. She had the surgery at Decatur County, which she had the choice of Decatur or Iowa City. And I was always saying, go to Iowa City, It might be more what to do. But she decided on Decatur. She had the surgery on her 63rd birthday. So the abscess would not heal, so they finally decided, well, we've done all we can, so we'll send her to Iowa Methodist in Des Moines. I think she had like 3 different surgeries to kind of correct this abscess. because when they did the first one, the second one at Decatur, and when they went in, they said, well, her intestines looked like they were all twisted, so they tried to help, but in Iowa Methodist, she had a couple more surgeries to try to correct that, but eventually she caught pneumonia and couldn't fight back from that, and she passed away in 85. Yeah. My dad was 10 years older, and he survived 10 years after she passed away, so, yeah.
So that was one of the challenges when your mom died?
Oh, yeah, yeah, another one. Because, why couldn't you heal her, why not? No, she's only 63, she's got a lot of time, and she had 2 granddaughters that she never met after that, so
So how did you manage through that?
just the same, yeah, keep going, pray a lot to God that time, yeah, so.
Well, I know we always have challenges. That's part of how we grow, is that through those challenges. Yeah, so what has it meant to you to be so active in the church? I mean, you've been employed, so you joined the church and then you were ordained to be a deacon. And I mean, you and Dale both have been consistently here. Not very many Sundays have you left. Have you been absent? So I just note that you've been very present, and your deacon ministry is definitely, I'm sure others here too have really recognized that ministry that you bring through being a deacon, making it a place of worship and a place of comfort as we come. So do you want to share a little bit about, why have you been so active? What's in you that has contributed maybe to that kind of commitment?
Basically, I think when you start something, you need to finish it and do your best. I'm kind of a perfectionist, I want to do it right all the time. And some of that, I think, came from, working with Clara Morrell out of Graceland, because if you're in the president's office, everything that goes out needs to be just right, or you might get criticism, but once in a while you do mess up. But yeah, just dedication to getting the job done and doing it right. So.
And what's it like to be in the role you're in right now? I mean, what kind of things do you do, and can you get it all done in 2 days?
A lot of what I do is, handle checks that people send in, working in Shelby. Well, that was another challenge, learning a lot about Shelby. I've learned more since I've been in the Mission Center.
You might explain what Shelby is.
Shelby is the accounting package that World Church uses for all the contributions and accounts payable, membership records, and the job for the Mission Center includes helping other CFOs with problems they might have with Shelby. Bank deposits, end of the month reports and reconciliation, just basically accounting, I would say.
What about the Lamoni congregation?
Lamoni, basically the same for the congregation, writing the checks for the expenses and doing the contributions. I'm also secretary for the congregation, which minutes during the meeting and any secretarial things like doing a bulletin that might be needed. And I'm also secretary for the Mission Center and recorder for the Mission Center, which involves membership records. That's it.
So it sounds like it's a lot of record keeping. And you gotta be really pretty exact, like you're saying earlier. Yeah, Shelby requires it, yeah. It has its checks and balances probably, yeah. Well, so I'm gonna ask one more question, then we're gonna open it up for questions from others. So how do you live out your faith in a way that exemplifies God's love toward us and would encourage others to seek God? That's a big question. So, how do you just daily life, live out your life every day, from your home or, when you go down to the grocery store, maybe you see people that exemplifies God's love. Pretty nebulous
I
question.
hear and understand here,
That might be
but I can't over there.
not so easy to answer, but maybe you have some examples of things that you do that maybe exemplifies God's love for people.
Well, basically I try to treat everyone the same, no matter race or, at the grocery store I always try to talk to the checkout people. They always say hi and how's your day, and so I respond back, ask how their day's going. So there's a couple of guys there that I usually talk to the most because at home I have grandkids, so I try to keep them from taking each other out. They're always, especially the two girls, they're always calling people themselves, names and like, you idiot, and why did you do that? And I say, hey, don't call people names, because even though, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, but I find that not to be true. Just trying to treat people like I think God would want us to. Be friendly, offer a smile when you meet people. That's basically.
And I know Malachi is getting older now. I'm not sure what year he is in school. That's Aaron's son. And I know, and there's been times he's been at the office when you were there. That's been probably not so much now as it was earlier, but he definitely has spent quite a bit of time in your home. And so, another place where you're having that kind of influence is with him. You and Dale both, not just you, but that's one that I've noticed. But yeah, in Lisa, so you might talk a little bit about what your kids are doing and where they are.
Our oldest is Aaron. He lives about a block west of us here. He has one son, Malachi, who's a freshman in high school. When he was first born, I made it a point to spend at least one day a week with him, and his mother agreed to let me do that. So I'd take him home with me, and we'd get into different things and go to the park. And he has ADHD, which has been a detriment to him, especially during school, because he has trouble learning. Our second son, Mike, lives in Leon. He's married and has two kids, Zelia, who is 10, and Abby, who will be 6 this year. And then our daughter, Lisa, she graduated high school and went to the Kansas City Art Institute down there. It's kind of an elite school, so we were really proud of her when she got there. And then she decided after that she wanted to get away from Iowa and Lamoni. So she moved to Florida, She had a friend down there that helped her find a job. It's basically transcribing reports that people call in. And right now she's kind of getting a little upset with Florida itself and her job because she hasn't really stepped up much since she's been there.
So maybe you'll get her back in Iowa. Yeah. Okay, anything else you want to share that we haven't talked about? Okay, all right, so Paul has a question.
While you were talking about when you met Dale, you should have seen his face. He was beaming. Could you take us back to that night or those couple of days? I love to hear how couples first connect.
Okay. Well, he was basically waiting for me one night after I got off work, sitting on the steps right outside my office, which at the time my office was where the north door is on the ad building. So it was right, my desk was right in front of the north door, which is famous for people who get engaged come and carve their initials in it. But he was basically just waiting there and asked me out for a date, and so we progressed from there.
We call that stalking today.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
But Linda, was it love at first sight, kind of?
no, not really. It kind of grew on, you know. Yeah, he graduated about 3 months after we met, so what do you do then? So we started writing letters, and then every other weekend he would come up here. He was living with his parents, I was living with my parents, so when he came up here, we'd usually go out to any activities at Graceland, and then Sundays we'd come to the church, and then in '74 he moved up here, so this kind of grew.
So, did you know him before you met him at the door?
No, I didn't. Well, he had been in the office maybe half a year before, asking about something about changing his major or a class, and we told him he'd have to go to the dean of faculty to do that. So, but I had never really known him before then.
And if I'm not mistaken, next Sunday we hear from Dale, we hear Dale's story. Or the Sunday after that, okay, the 28th, okay. So we'll get to hear the other side of the story then. Other questions?
I don't have a question, but I am amazed that you remember all these dates.
It's part of the job.
Wow. Amazing.
I didn't catch you, Linda. How many, do you have one brother?
I did have a
Yeah.
brother, but he passed away in '91 when he was 38.
I
So
thought maybe, I heard that, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
What happened?
he had colon cancer. He went to the doctor. He'd had flu-like symptoms for a while. They'd go away and then come back, and then they diagnosed colon cancer, and then when they did the surgery, it was too far gone. So he lived. They said they gave him 6 months, but he lived about a year and a half. So he is married. He had a son who's basically the same age as our boys, and then a daughter who was 6 years younger. So they're still in Independence area.
I used to remember him, so I knew who he was.
What did your mom do at Graceland?
She worked in the Commons in the food service area.
Yeah, that was Lisa's mom, in case you didn't hear me ask the question. Her mom worked in food service, yeah. Yeah.
So what year was that? What was her first name?
Wilma, she worked from 66 to 84, about 19 years, basically.
I know Wilma. I worked in the Commons from 72 to 76. How was your mother? Uh-huh.
What was your older sister's name?
Sharon, yeah,
And she is where?
right now she's out in Baltimore area.
That's who you were talking about.
Yeah, she met, well, reconnected with a friend that she and her first husband knew at Iowa State when they were students, so there's a possible marriage coming up. She's 78, so.
Hey, it's never too late. I have two aunts that got married for the first time when they were 75, so.
Any other questions?
I have. What was your family name?
Blake, B-L-A-K-E.
Blake.
We're not, as far as we can tell, there's no
No connection.
history of Aurelius.
That's
My-
okay.
Yeah, my grandma Blake came over from England when she was 7 in, I think it was 1902, somewhere around there.
Linda, it's no secret that we don't pay you an over-the-top wage to do the job that you do for the Mission Center and for the church. Is there any part of you that in your mind says, that's okay, because this is part of my calling?
Yeah, 'cause I wasn't expecting any payment really for this, the congregational one. So, and when I first started at the Mission Center, it was very minimal. So,
And I wish that was different. You deserve more.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. Great story. We really, really appreciate it, yeah.